going to start by talking about filters and the filter gallery. Filters are used to clean or touch up your images, and you can also use them to add special effects or distortion effects to your photos. And when you apply a filter, you can easily change the mood or tone of an image. And in Elements, the filters are found in your filter gallery. And to find them, you just come up here to your menu and go to Filter, click on that, and then right here, the second thing down is your filter gallery. Click on that, and it's going to bring up this dialog box. And in this dialog box, you'll see on the left panel, you have a picture of your image. And this is going to be where it previews the filter effect of each filter that you pick. And then next, right here in the middle, you have this little box and these folders. And to the left of these folders, you have the arrows. And on the arrows, if you click on them, you will see that you get these different thumbnails. And each one of these thumbnails is a filter that you can bring up. And if you don't want artistic, close that, open that. You can also open them all at once and then kind of scroll through them to check them out. But I find it's easiest to just open one at a time. And let's go down here to Sketch. Let's try Conte Crayon. Now, to apply the filter, all you have to do is select the one that you want, double click on it, and then you'll see right here in your preview box, that's what the filter is going to do. Now, if you like the effect but you don't like the way it's being applied, that's where this right panel comes in. Now over here you see it says Conte Crayon, and you can change that if you want to use a different filter. You can just select from this drop down menu, but let's leave it at Conte Crayon. And then here's your options for that particular filter. You can slide it up to change the foreground level, and as you slide you see this part of the window is changing so you can see in real time what it's doing. Pull it down to make it less. We're going to put it right there. And then you also have your background level. So in the background, you're going to have less of a Conte Crayon or more of a Conte Crayon. And then here you can select what kind of texture it's going to have, which just changes kind of the way it looks a little bit, and the scaling and the relief, which once again, the best way to mess with this is just to play around with your sliders until you get an effect you like. And as you begin to work with these over and over again, you'll start to get a sense for what they do. But there's so many of them, and they do so many different things that a lot of the time people just play with them until they find an effect they like. Now, the last couple things that you can do, you can change where your light's coming from, and if you want to change it completely, you can just click Invert, and that will kind of reverse everything you did. And for this particular effect, that didn't do much. So we're just going to go back to regular. And to use any other filter that's available in Photoshop Elements 12, you do it exactly the same way. You simply go over to the filter, click on it, and then your preview will come up, and it will give you your options right here, and you can play around with them until you get the look that you want. And I like that effect right there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And when you hit OK, it brings you back into your image, and you can see that you've now applied that filter to your image. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is the clone stamp. And there's going to be a lot of times where there's going to be something in your image that you want to get rid of. And you can do so by using the clone stamp. And I'm going to go ahead and go into this image right here. And in this image, I don't like this pine cone. I want to get rid of it, and I'd like to replace it with some of this green grass. Well, I can do that by using the clone stamp. And how you do that is you come over here, and you have this thing that looks like a stamp, and you click on that, and that's going to be your clone stamp. And in your clone stamp option panel, you once again have your brush options, and your size and your opacity and your blend mode, all things that you're familiar with. And then you have two options. You've got your regular clone stamp, and you've got a pattern stamp tool. Well, we're going to start out with the clone stamp tool. And the clone stamp's a little bit tricky to work with until you get used to it. But how it works is, once you have that selection, you're going to go over the area that you want to clone. And 21 pixels is a little small, so we're going to bring it up a bit. And the first thing you have to do is you have to tell the computer what you want it to clone or duplicate. And you do that by hovering over the area that you want to duplicate. And for me, I want this green right in here. And then you're going to select by Alt clicking that area. And you know that you have it, that you're ready to click it when that little target comes up as your cursor right there. And so go ahead and click that area. And now you have your clone area selected, and it's like on a clipboard, the computer remembers what you want to clone. And now you're going to come over here to this pine cone, and you will see, but if we zoom in a little bit, when you go over the pine cone, you see this green in your cursor. And that green is showing you what it's going to lay down if you click your mouse. So if you're over here, it's going to lay down that green there. If you're over there, it's going to lay down your green right there. And wherever you start clicking, when you click it, you'll see the crosshairs. And that shows you the area that you're cloning. And if you drag while holding down the mouse, if you drag, you'll see your crosshairs move because it's cloning a different area as you drag. So it's showing you the part of the image that you're cloning while you drag it around. Now here you can easily just pull your clone tool right over the top, but a lot of the times it doesn't blend correctly. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this green grass patch in there, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to select another area and selecting this dark area in here and clicking on it. And now that I have my clone loaded, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add some darkness just around the edges to try to get this area to blend a little more. I'm going to do that one more time. Okay, go in there and do that. And as you can see, as we zoom out from a distance, you can't even tell that the pine cone was ever there. And we did it by using this clone stamp. And now next to the clone stamp, you have your pattern stamp. And a pattern stamp kind of works like a pattern brush. You go in here and you're going to stamp in a pattern, and whatever pattern is in here is what you're going to stamp. So make it really huge so you can see exactly how it works. Go ahead and click and drag, and as you can see, you're just basically painting in your pattern, but you're doing it with the pattern stamp instead of using a paintbrush. So that's another way that you can paint in patterns if you're so inclined. Next thing that we're going to talk about is the healing brush. And the healing brush is actually a very useful tool, particularly if you're working with portraits. Now, say you're working with this portrait right here, and you might see that there's a little bit of blemishing going on in the forehead area. Well, you can use the healing brush to actually clear that up. And how you do it is you go over here to your healing brush, and it's going to be this Band-Aid right there. And that's actually the spot healing brush, but go ahead and select it, and then you'll have your options for a spot healing brush or the regular healing brush. You just decide which of the two of these you want to use, and then you go into your options panel like you did with every other tool, and you're going to select your size, you're going to select your brush settings, which really is just the amount of hardness, the spacing, and the roundness. With this, I would probably just change the hardness, because with a healing brush, it's going to select the surrounding area and sample it and use that to cover. But you don't want a really hard edge on it, because that's going to keep it from blending very well. So if you keep it smooth, that's probably better for the healing brush. And keep the size small. You can always build up with a small brush, but if you have too big of a brush and it covers too much at once, it's going to be harder to get rid of. So I like to keep my size small and my brush settings on the softer side. If you go with the spot healing brush, the computer is going to calculate the area around it and do what's called a content aware fill, which means the computer is going to say, well, that's a skin tone, there's this skin tone around it, so I'm just going to use that skin tone to match the area and cover up. 90% of the time that's going to work for you. But if it looks bad, you can come over here to this regular healing brush, and in the regular healing brush you have the option of selecting the pixels that you want to use to cover, and you can do that from sampling an area, similar to how you did with the clone area, or by using a pattern. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and go with the spot healing brush, and we're going to go over that area, and we're just going to cover the blemish and click, and as you can see, it got rid of it. And if you don't believe me, we're going to zoom in, And you can see how it kind of got rid of that. Go back to your spot healing brush if you want to get rid of that. Go ahead and click over that, and it gets rid of that. Now there's a spot right there. Click on that. As you can see, it just blends it out. And that's how you use your spot healing brush. The straighten tool is located right here in the bottom right corner, right above your foreground and background color. And if you click on that, you're going to get your straighten options panel. And that gives you a few different options that you can use with the straighten tool. You can grow or shrink the canvas to fit the image once it's rotated. You can actually crop to remove the background after the image is straightened by the computer, or you can crop it to the original size. You have those three options to choose from. Also, you can click this to rotate all the layers in your photograph or image. And right now I only have one layer, so it's not really going to affect it, but if you had several, you could do that. And finally, you have autofill edges. And let's go ahead and go with remove background, and then let's actually use the straighten tool. And to use the straighten tool, what you need to do is you need to find either a horizontal line or a vertical line in your photo and tell the computer that that's a horizontal or vertical line. And what that means is right here you have this line right there. And if the image was actually straight, that would be almost perfectly horizontal. But because it's not, it's at an angle. So if you come in here and you start at the top of the line and you hit click and you drag, you're going to drag this line behind you. And you're just going to trace that line. And then when you get to the end of that line, you're going to let go. And then the computer will automatically straighten your image. So that's how to use your straighten tool. Next, let's talk about the Recomposed Tool. The Recomposed Tool is located in the Tools panel, and it's going to be found down here in this bottom section on the top right side. Bring it up, and when you come over for your photo, you will see a little round icon like this. And the Recomposed Tool is a little bit strange, but what it does is it actually changes the composition of your photo, hence recompose. And with the Recomposed tool, you can crop and transform at the same time. You can also move elements in an image either closer together or change the orientation of an image from either landscape to portrait or portrait to landscape. But the first thing you need to know is how do you use the Recomposed tool? And basically what you do with the Recomposed tool is you're going to decide what parts of the photo you want to highlight or protect by using this paintbrush with the plus sign, and what parts you don't care as much about, and you're going to let the program decide how to recompose them. And let me show you how this works. First, you start out with this paintbrush with the plus sign, and this is marked for protection. And I want to protect this area right in here. So I'm going to protect this by painting over it, and as you can see, my paintbrush size is kind of small, so it's going to take a while. So I'll go and get a bigger paintbrush and just go in and paint this green on the photo and cover up this area to tell the program that this is the part of the photo that I don't want it to play around with. Because when it plays around with it and changes it, it's going to warp it a little bit and change the proportions. And I don't want it to do it with this object because then it'll start to look funny. So go ahead and mark that for protection. And then you're going to decide what part of the photo you want to get rid of. And you do this by going down to your brush and using mark for removal. And then coming over and you're going to brush this, and I'm going to use a bigger size to make it faster. And you're going to brush in all the areas that you're going to tell the program to go ahead and change. And if you start to accidentally brush over some of the things that you marked for protection with your deletion button, you can go here to your eraser. Before it was grayed out, this is where you go in and you change. Like see right in here, I mark that for deletion. Maybe I want to keep it, so I can go in and erase that deletion right there. Or here I marked for protection and maybe I don't want that protected, so I could go in and just delete it there. So that's how you use the erasers. Let's go back to mark for deletion, and we're just gonna kind of fill this out and tell it to get rid of that, maybe down here. And you're just gonna keep painting until you have all of the areas you want deleted and all the areas you have protected covered. And once you have your photo looking basically how you want it to look, the next thing that you need to do, once it's been marked, is to come down here to your bounding box. And this is where you're going to decide on the proportions of the new photo. Right now, it's in landscape mode, but suppose we want it as a portrait. Go ahead and pull it in on both sides, like so. And then down here you'll see that it's giving you the new dimensions in your width and height box. Well, you can also decide on your new dimensions by picking a size from this box right here. So that's another way that you can do it. And once you have your photo looking basically the way you like it to look, go ahead and commit your current changes.